Okay.
Here we are.
Perfect. Well, hello, Ugandans and the world at large. This is Freedom Uganda, and today we are going to talk about human rights and social media activism with Dr. Nicole, Dr. Helen Eston, who's also an author, and of course, Dr. Daniel Oma. And before we get started, we are going to start off with a section about hashtags. Hashtags are very important to the movement in terms of raising awareness what is taking place in Uganda in terms of human rights violation, Uganda, and election violence. Let's get started. We all know how important hashtags are in terms of creating awareness to the human rights violations that are taking place in Uganda. Today, we have Sophie here with us. She's going to walk us through these trends and hashtags that we are supposed to be using in order to ensure that our message reaches the worldwide audience. Sophie, please go ahead.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Nicole. So over the past 2 weeks, we've had a couple of hashtags trending. But the major hashtags that trend are those ones that are supported or pushed by Bobby Wine himself, because of the huge following he has and the big audience he has. So when he pushes when he tweets a hashtag, for example, when he tweets, he usually tweets with the hashtag "We are removing a dictator." He introduced that hashtag about 2 weeks ago, and every time he tweets, it trends because of the traffic it generates and the engagement it gets and all that. So most people here have been using that hashtag when they tweet, and a lot of people have gotten familiar with it and they're using it. Another hashtag is hashtag 14th January 2021, the day we are going to be voting for the president and the members of parliament. He pushes that hashtag as well. And there has also been the police brutality hashtags. They are two. Initially, it was one, but then a second one was created when the regime messed with the first one. They misspelled some words in the hashtag. I feel like that was a tactic by the regime to kind of like slow the hashtag down. So a second one.
I actually noticed that happening. I think it was actually an incident. I think it was one of the Noob supporters that just accidentally misspelled the hashtag, and then he or she got so many retweets. And the problem is then if you want to start typing a hashtag, then Twitter is going to suggest you a hashtag. And because that hashtag has been trending, it's going to suggest you the misspelled hashtag. So yeah, it's very, very annoying.
Right. It was really annoying. And I remember when people tweeted with it, I tried to correct them, but it's not possible to correct so many people. But at the moment, I think a lot of people have gotten familiar with the correct spellings, and they are tweeting under the right hashtag, which is hashtag Stop Police Brutality in Uganda. And the sister to that one is hashtag End Police Brutality in Uganda. So we use them concurrently whenever there is an incident of police brutality, like last month on the 18th, when they massacred a number of people, including children. It was a very difficult day. May the Lord bless their souls. May they rest in peace. and we pray that someday justice will be served for those people. So those are some of the hashtags. I hope I haven't put in any. Oh, there's also hashtag Stop Museveni. Yes.
And obviously, I see it is frustrating for the government because they don't like the opposition hashtags to trend. They rather have their own hashtags, like Stop Hooliganism trends.
Yeah,
And
it's true.
we have we have a lot of support. We have social media, lots of social media queens and kings and activists, and just really daily Ugandans, everyday Ugandans that are supporting the movement for change in Uganda. As Bobby Wine calls it, we are removing a dictator. So many Ugandans that are definitely doing their best to remove dictator Museveni. But we have to make sure that we are organized in the way that we are doing this so that we are effective and our message definitely reaches a worldwide audience.
Right.
Yes. So maybe Sophie, you can explain us a bit how, if the principal doesn't create a hashtag himself, how you create hashtags, for example.
Yes, there was a while ago, I think it was at the beginning of the year, we created hashtags. For example, there was a time Bobby Wine was to hold a concert. When he held the first digital concert he held, he hadn't created a hashtag for that one. So we talked amongst ourselves and we decided on one hashtag. We created it and then we put it out there. The day the concert was happening, we pushed that hashtag. We pushed the hashtag and it trended, and everyone started tweeting under it, and it trended. Mainly, people engage with these hashtags when they have to do with Bobby Wine. That's what I noticed. But if it has to do with things, for example, with the European Union, for example, I used to tweet about that under 2 or 3 hashtags that we created. They were hashtag EU fascism Uganda, something like that. I don't remember correctly. But people did not engage with these hashtags as much as we wanted or we expected them to.
Yes.
But when you tweet a hashtag that has to do with Bobby Wine, people will pounce on that.
Yes.
I feel like, I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like the Bobby Wine factor really pushes a hashtag more than any other hashtag that I can start myself. So there is that. We've been starting hashtags over a certain period of time, but people have not been engaging with them. It has been just a few activists that have picked up on those hashtags and tweeted under them, and they didn't really trend, but they were out there. We put the message out there. So
Sophie, if we speak to the principal, then we'll make sure that he gets some hashtag training by you. And in 2 weeks, we're going to talk again, and then you're going to report on the newest hashtags, okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much. And we are back.
That was Sophie. She's very big on Twitter. Puts us updated and helps out with Freedom Uganda in terms of message formulation. Dr. Daniel Kauma, what did you think about that? How important are hashtags to this movement?
By the way, you have a lot of feedback on your end, but thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you, viewers, and thank you everybody for who is joining us today from Uganda and in the diaspora. I think that's a very important conversation especially social media has become a very powerful tool in countries like ours where political opponents never had access to the media. And it's the same thing we see playing out in Uganda, where Museveni takes over all the traditional media outlets. So the only opportunity for the oppositions and activists to get their word out is through using social media. And the best way to get the critical messages to trend is by making sure you are competent at using social media. So that's why I think it's a very important conversation to make sure everyone who is out there on the ground can get the message out to reach us in the diaspora and to reach people so that they know what's going on in the country. So how we use social media tools such as Twitter, Facebook to get the word out is very crucial. So I think it's a very important educational message for all of us.
Perfect. Helen Epstein, anything from you on hashtags?
I'm not a great Twitterer myself, but I do follow it, and I think it's an amazing indicator of and an amazing tool for raising awareness about these problems. It reaches so many people, and it's really been a godsend actually in this case, because I think it's really helped boost attention to the problems in Uganda like nothing else.
Thank you very much. And obviously, we've all seen the human rights violations that are taking place in Uganda during this election time. And so, Dr. Daniel Koma, can you please give us an update on events in Uganda right now?
Again, greetings everyone who is joining us. So Honorable Kyagulanyi is back on the campaign trail after taking a day off to sit down with the Electoral Commission to find out the way forward following the violence we witnessed on the streets of Kampala and across the country. We're supposed to be in the middle of a campaign, but it looks like a war zone. Yes. Today, Honorable Kyagulanyi was in Bududa. He was in Kapchora and Queen. Those are the stops, the campaign stops he made today, and he was well received. But once again, we are witnessing a lot of he's followed by police and military everywhere he goes. We see many civilians who are suffering at the brunt of the police and military. So again, our thoughts and prayers go out to the 54 Ugandans and their families who lost their lives just in the last 30 days. You can imagine we have 30 more days to go in this election cycle. So if we have already lost 54 Ugandan civilians, we have over 100 more in hospitals and many who are nursing injuries each and every day. Honorable Kyagulanyi goes out to campaign, as well as other members of the opposition. We see many casualties, we see many injuries happening on the streets today. 35 years ago, when Museveni went to the bush and a war which consumed over 500,000 Ugandan lives, some of the issues he said he was fighting for was to restore democracy in Uganda, to make sure he restores free and fair elections, as well as rule of law. But there's no better image to show you the state of politics in Uganda than the image of his major political opponent wearing body armor to go on the campaign trail. Yeah. So Honorable Kyagulanyi has to wear a bulletproof vest and body armor to protect himself 35 years later, after we lost 500,000 Ugandans under the guise of restoring democracy and free and fair elections in Uganda. So in a nutshell, that's the state of our elections today. No one should be surprised. If you remember the day that Museveni had his nomination in Kyambogo, he said that nobody has more guns like he does. And he also emphatically stated that he will crush all his political opponents. And I know he loves to bring up the foreigners and so forth. And he calls others homosexuals and so forth, just his usual campaign tune. So that's the position of the government. So we shouldn't be surprised that we are seeing loss of lives on the street of Kampala today, because that's the official position of the current government. He said he's going to crush his political opponents, and he's doing just that each and every day. And we have seen this systematically happened. Since Honorable Kyagulanyi made his intentions clear, Museveni has used the institutions of government each and every way to make sure they help them retain power. We saw what happened with Parliament. The only way he's on the ballot today is because Parliament was able to amend the Constitution to eliminate the age limits. We have also seen Parliament be able to approve supplementary budgets. We saw all the funds that came from the IMF, the World Bank. So we have all the funds which are being siphoned off to the State House, as well as security forces, under the guise of classified expenditure. So Parliament is able to do whatever Museveni wants. They amend the Constitution, they give him the funds he wants. And also, if you look at the Electoral Commission itself, they're able to play around with the rules of the election, calling for a scientific election. Recently, we saw the Electoral Commission say he doesn't even have subscription to his television outlet to be able to see the violence that's happening on the streets. And that's the custodian of our elections. If you look at the police and military, they are very partisan. They are mostly targeting the opposition each and every day. If you look at the Ministry of Health, they have weaponized COVID-19. Now, COVID-19 is a serious disease, and no one is debating against the harm the virus has caused globally. But if you look at how it has been weaponized, Museveni and the NRM candidates are able to have their processions and rallies and gatherings without interference. Yes. But the opposition is arrested and targeted for allegedly violating the COVID-19 guidelines. So just in a nutshell, Museveni is doing whatever he can using the institutions of government to make sure he continues to target the political opponents. But the major concern for me are the human rights violations that we are witnessing on the streets, and also the life of Honorable Kyagulanyi and other opposition candidates. Because if a candidate has to wear body armor on the campaign trail, that means there are real threats out there in his life. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Daniel Comer. That was well put. And I'm also seeing a hashtag from our friends and our viewers on Ekyoto. And the hashtag says free Norbert Ariho, if I'm saying his name right. This young man was arrested while he was on the campaign trail with Kyagulanyi Ssentamu Robert. We also a tear gun canister that was thrown at the car that was near Kyagulanyi Ssentamu Robert that ended up hurting Dan Magic and Bobby Wine's bodyguard, Kato. That canister was thrown by someone from the NRM regime, but they blamed it on Norbert. Later on, NBS released the video that clearly showed that he did not throw that tear gun canister. And even with all that evidence, the regime pulls him off the campaign trail and arrests him unjustly for a crime he did not commit, which absolutely makes no sense because clearly we have men walking around following Kyagulanyi Ssentamu Robert out of uniform holding pistols. And it's okay for them to do that and then jump back on police cars, but you have this young man that is being arrested unjustly for a crime that he did not commit. But with that said...
Shall we shortly look at that video?
Yes, please.
So what exactly happened? From this footage recorded by NBS TV, amid Bobby Wine's verbal exchange, his bodyguard, who has now been identified as Ariho Norbert, is seen in the background of Bobby Wine next to this white car. By the time the explosive lands on the car, Norbert is seen smiling and looking away, unaware of what is yet to happen. So if we are to go frame by frame, here is the direction where the explosive came from, fired from a gun. According to
this is just great journalism, right? I mean, it's really good to see that this is still possible in Uganda.
Yeah, it's really heartbreaking. It really saddens me that you have NUP supporters that are being targeted in such a way. But This
Patricia, to add on to that point, sorry for interrupting you, we have official spokespeople of NRM such as Don Wanyama. They have the doctored videos on their social media pages. So these are spokespeople of NRM who are promoting the propaganda that the violence is being generated from within Bobby Wine's camp. So it's a tragedy that this is the government which is pandering that narrative to show that they have no responsibility for the violence that is happening on the streets. So that's really concerning.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Very, very concerning. And we can say, go on, Nico.
Yeah, for the lack of time, I actually want to ask Helen a question, because Helen, last week you wrote a fantastic article about the 300 million that you discovered on the books of the Ugandan government that was lended to them by the World Bank and was directly then assigned to security forces. Was this? Were you the one that discovered this, or was that already known?
I wasn't the one who discovered it, but there were a number of Ugandan opposition supporters who put two and two together. So it wasn't the way this theft of donor funds essentially happens. It doesn't happen directly. Museveni doesn't walk into the treasury, open the safe and pull out lots of shilling notes or dollars or anything. Mm-hmm. The way they steal, they have to actually go through an act of parliament to get the stealing done. And as Daniel, Dr. Kawuma mentioned, the parliament often rubber stamps Museveni's requests. Part of the reason they do that, as I'm sure you know, is because some of them are bribed and others are threatened or in fact tortured. And a number of politicians, not only Bobby Wine, but others have been held in detention for incommunicado for days and days and come out with on crutches. And this has happened to many MPs, and others get the message. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of, I think, what happened in this case, whereby in, I believe, April, there was a budget request from the government for $300 million, and a little bit more than that, maybe $350 million. A small amount of money actually went to the Ministry of Health. This was for COVID-19, dealing with the pandemic. But $300 million went into a classified budget for the security forces and State House, essentially. And classified means no one can oversee what that money is spent on. We have no idea. Even the donors don't know. And then about a few weeks later, the World Bank announced that it had just negotiated a $300 million loan to the Ugandan government to deal with the consequences of COVID-19. What a coincidence. Of course, that behind the scenes for several weeks or months. And so the regime would have known it was coming and probably put the money, the equivalent amount of money, into a classified security budget in anticipation of that money arriving. So, you know, and even there, when we look at what the World Bank had intended that money to be spent on, it's not being spent on COVID relief. We still have large numbers of people being turned away from hospitals who are in need of COVID-19 and other forms of treatment in Uganda. We probably have a much bigger death toll there than has been officially recorded. Health workers don't have enough PPE. There aren't enough ICU beds. There aren't enough ventilators. And there isn't enough oxygen in Malago Hospital. So it is a disgrace, frankly.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it is funny that the whole world thinks that masks help prevention of COVID, but in Uganda they think bullets help better.
Right. Exactly.
So actually, I've just asked our audience to think of a proper hashtag for that money that flows into Uganda is not spent on COVID, but is spent on tear gas canisters and violence, and to bring that to their attention.
Yep. And Nico, you have another question?
No, you go ahead, Patricia.
Dr. Daniel, I did forward you the article by Helen Epstein that was in the New York Review of Books. Do you have any comments on that article?
No, I think it pretty much sums up what's going on in Uganda today and where our focus should be. The human rights violations are evident. There's massive loss of life, not just through the military, but we talked about what's going on in our hospitals. There isn't enough oxygen in Mulago Hospital, which is our national referral hospital. We saw a publication recently from the Monitor, which highlighting that there isn't enough PPEs, not enough oxygen for the doctors to do their job in Mulago Hospital. So in addition to the healthcare catastrophe going on, we have Ugandans being killed on the streets, and all of that is happening when Uganda doesn't make guns. So all these guns are coming from abroad. Yes. So that's where you have to focus your eyes on who is enabling this to happen. Yes. And it's good that the article is really zeroing in on the people who are enabling this to happen, which falls on the hands of the donors. Now, I'm not saying all the donations are bad, because our healthcare budget is half of the healthcare budget is funded by foreign donations and foreign aid. But if you look at the military budget, so the guns which are being used to kill Ugandans on the streets, the 54 families who don't have their children, their wives and loved ones, those guns are part of the military package coming from the United States, because Museveni has done an excellent job of supporting the US missions in Somalia and Iraq, among other expeditions in the East African region. So there has to be accountability, especially for the United States taxpayers, that your money is being used to kill children, to kill civilians, innocent civilians on the streets of Uganda. So for me, those are the two main pickouts from this article, is addressing the human rights challenges happening, as well as having accountability, because the United States taxpayers, that canister which almost killed Bobby Wine came from France. So there are many Western countries which are contributing to the tragedy which we're witnessing in Africa today, and there has to be accountability.
And it was banned in France. They can't use that. And not only that, it's expired. So that's a very big problem, for us. And so, Nico, do you have a video of Amos Segawa's mom?
Yes, sure. If you have some other question, then I will look it up.
Perfect. So we here at Freedom Uganda, we've been trying our best to record as many cases of human rights violations that are coming in from Uganda. I've done some work with Helen Epstein and Task International. But what I'm realizing is that we don't know how to report these cases. And the information that we're receiving from the ground is also not as clear as it's supposed to be. One problem I ran into, for example, there was a story that was that I looked up on YouTube that was aired by one of the news platforms. And in this story, they say that Amos Segawa, the young man that died, was actually 9 years old. But then when I directly talked to Amos's mother, I found out that he was actually 15 years old. So go on ahead and play that video, and then we'll move on to Helen Epstein to help us record this stories better. Volume.
It's a bit soft, unfortunately.
Okay, maybe next time. All right, maybe next time.
Yes, because I just listened to it, so let me just explain what she is saying here. So she is explaining that she was just walking by the road with her son. So they were not going to a demonstration or something. They were just walking down the road when a police truck came by and randomly shot at some people. So her son was hurt. Obviously, she concentrated on her own son, but also some other people got shot. And then our Freedom Uganda volunteer asked, how do you know that it was UPDF that did this? And she says that she actually saw them shooting at her son. And then she was asked if they wanted to give any assistance, because obviously he needed to go to hospital. And she said that no, they just rushed off, and it was over, and she was there with her dead son.
Yes, yes. Very sad story. Thank you very much, Nico. Helen Epstein, we want to make sure that we are giving as much information as we're supposed to. The majority of our listeners are actually Noob supporters, change supporters from all different opposition parties, and they're actually activists. And so, can you please give us a step by step on how to record case of human rights violation in Uganda?
Yeah. Maybe the best thing is to record as much sort of accurate biographical data as possible. First of all, the person's accurate name, because Ugandans have lots of different names.
Okay.
Try to get the one that's on the ID card, the one that's on a passport, if the person has such a thing.
Okay.
And then the person's age and the area where the person lives, so that he or she can be identified. And if possible, that person's telephone number or the number of the next of kin, if it's a person who has died. This would greatly assist investigators if a list of those could be compiled somewhere. You can send them to me, for example, or you can send them to Patricia, and we will keep a roster. The other thing is to try to get as much detail as possible about exactly what happened, a kind of a paragraph or more that would just describe the circumstances of what happened according to witnesses, and quote the witnesses, whether it's a person, him or herself, or someone else who saw what happened. But generally it needs to be a firsthand witness. So someone who actually saw what happened, or who was himself a victim. What else? Those are the kinds of, really that would be an enormous help, just sending those into a sort of central repository with Patricia or with me, because we are trying to compile an accurate list of this. Because what so often happens, after 9/11 here in the United States, the newspapers published, short accounts of everyone who died, names and pictures and so on. And it really humanized the response there. It galvanized the sort of spirit, I think, of the population. And I think that's what's really necessary here. These are not just numbers. These are real people. And
how important is it to have pictures or video material?
Extremely important, especially for if this ever goes to a court, for example. This would be vital to have video evidence. So please send that too. And thank you very much for mentioning that. And also the names and phone numbers of witnesses. So all of this is absolutely essential.
Another thing that we've seen is sometimes these interviews do take place, and the interview is really good, but it's in Uganda, which is my native language. And I send it over to you, and I have to translate everything for you. So if you're taking a video in Uganda, that's perfectly fine. but just make sure that you're translating within the video itself what they're saying back to English. Go on ahead, Ellen.
And even if you don't manage to do the translation, it's cool because Patricia can do it, or someone, even if it's but it's best if the translation is there, of course. And it's also best because not only English speakers, but people from all over Uganda can appreciate it. People from the north and from the east who may not speak such good Luganda. Remember, this is a national problem. It's affecting everybody. So, you know, we are finding, I mean, the victims came from all over.
Absolutely.
And so we really, English, alas, is sort of the language that everybody more or less knows a little bit, or many people do. And the international community, who also needs to be galvanized about this, they speak English too. So,
okay. So just before we have Dr. Daniel Kauma close us out, again, I want to focus back on the United States. There's so many Ugandans and Africans in general that really see the United States as and the EU as countries that actually really do care about Uganda and want to put an end to what is taking place in Uganda. But it is actually the complete opposite. They are literally aiding dictator Museveni, and they're trying to keep him in power. So Helen Epstein, you mentioned in your article that on November 19th, the day after Bobby Wine's arrest, the U.S. Embassy tweeted that it urged all parties to renounce violence. Tell us more about that tweet.
Yeah, it was troubling because it's true that some of the demonstrators set fires in the street and some of them threw stones. They were angry and terrified because the last time this had happened to Bobby Wine, he had been detained for a week and came out on crutches along with dozens of his supporters and 4 other MPs. So there was a reason to be upset. But the regime's response was completely out of proportion. And that is something that human rights investigators, everyone who is involved in the human rights community recognizes. And, you know, to shoot scores of people dead in response to that is highly inappropriate and criminal, in fact. So the tweet from the U.S. Embassy said, urged all sides to renounce violence and did not recognize the disproportionate violence meted out by the Ugandan government, and really treated what happened as a both sides, quote unquote, problem. And I think that was a misrepresentation of the facts, and it upset a lot of Ugandans, and I think rightly so.
Yes. And Ugandans, it is very important that you are speaking up against this kind of like tweets. Our people are dying, and this is not time to be shy. Like, you have to be 100% honest with the Western powers as to what is taking place in Uganda. Helen Epstein is the writer of a book, Another Fine Mess, and that is America and Uganda's War on Terror. You can find this book on Amazon. Are they still on Amazon, Helen?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Again, that is Another Fine Mess. You can find the book on Amazon. Dr. Daniel Kauma, please give us a closing statement. What do you predict is going to happen within the next month, really, leading up to January 14th, 2021, which is election day?
So first of all, to add to the message that Helen and you just mentioned, is for people to be vigilant, especially the diaspora. I thank everyone who came out to DC recently for the demonstration we had. And to encourage Ugandans in the diaspora who have options, might not be on the ground, you have access to houses and organizations like us, for instance, like the State Department, which has been tough under the Trump administration, but hopefully we'll get more help from the State Department. You have this Congress. So, but to approach such organizations, we need accurate information. We need telling stories.
Yes.
And that's the only way we are going to be able to fight against the both sides argument, by make sure we present real stories real images of the suffering happening on the ground, to make sure that taxpayers here in the United States and other places where most of the funding that goes to our government are aware that some of the money and the military aid is not being used for the right purposes that it's supposed to. So I think that's the overall message. As far as the campaign going forward, I'm not very hopeful based on what I've seen the government do. I'm worried about the safety of Honorable Chagulanyi, and I hope he continues to be vigilant, especially with his team around him, to make sure he's safe. I'm happy that he's taking steps to protect himself by wearing armor, though it's kind of unfortunate that he has to do that. But I'm glad that he's doing that, considering that the police is willing to shoot live ammunition directly at his car, at the car of a presidential candidate. And not only that, at Ugandan civilians, we see they just shoot aimlessly. And Museveni recently was saying that those were stray bullets which were killing Ugandan civilians. But if you look at every election cycle, we had police killing Ugandan civilians during elections. So this is not a one-time off. This is just a practice. This is the official position of his government when he says they want to crush the Ugandan people. So we shouldn't be surprised when it happens. We just have to continue to shedding light so that the world knows what's going on in our country. I believe that's the only checks and balances we'll have, because right now we don't expect any checks and balances to happen from Uganda. The media is intimidated. Parliament is intimidated. So there's nobody really to speak for the people who are suffering back home. So the diaspora, we have to do our part. Let's work with the organizations that are available to make sure we can have some form of election. Because right now it's very clear the excitement, the support is with the opposition. So it's the matter of organizing to make sure we can have a peaceful power transition in our country, Uganda. So thank you for hosting us, and thank you, Helen and Nico, for all that you do.
Perfect. You can find all this information on www.freedomuganda.com. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. I was dancing. Thank you, guys.